What's your special treat?
It's for the cast. So let me know when we're live.
We should be live, but I'm just waiting for YouTube to catch up because it does this goddamn delay thing. There it finally is. Do our obligatory audio check. Do our obligatory audio check. Give me something,
Obligate.
brother.
Hello.
Give me something, brother. Hello. All right, we're good thus far. We'll do another audio check. Welcome everybody to the Average Intelligence Podcast, special live simulcast of the Trump Harris debate. And this podcast, what's a podcast? I don't know what that is, but this podcast is brought to you by Stevie Wicks, Cool Beans Candle Company, and Force Sand Corporation. We will talk about both of those. Actually, we're going to talk about Stevie Wicks. God, I can't talk. We're going to talk about Stevie Wicks right now because the Halloween candles are back, everybody, and they're here
Ooh.
early. They're here early just for you. And another special announcement. Even the special candles, massive price reduction site wide. Stevie Wicks wants to move these. These candles last year, the holiday candles were $24.99. Guess how much they are this year?
A lot.
$19.99 on special. The regular candles are $17.99. But there's more. If you use special promo code AIP at checkout, you save an additional 10% on your entire order. So get these bad boys while you can. Get them in time for Halloween because apparently Samsung's legal terms were updated. Anyway, get these now because after October 31st, they're gone for another year. Get yours while you can. StevieWicks.com, first link in the description. Really quick because we're starting in 4 minutes. What was so funny?
So the thing is, like, since Trump was, someone took a shot at Trump, whatnot. Like, I only feel it's fitting that like I feel like Kamala's gonna try to take him out, Kamala Kazi style. So Trump's gonna be like, he's just gonna be like, what is he saying? How did he say this? You know, I can't do it right now. But anyway,
Boo.
Trump goes, and then she told me she had a gun. It sounded like she used it
No, no,
once
no.
before.
She doesn't believe in the Second Amendment.
No, she knows now.
But I will say this much because I have my see if we'll have a little test here going. Oh, no, I'm just going to share the screen this time. Crap.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Okay, so I've got my prediction map up and I looked at the polling data today. And based upon what I saw, this map should be the most accurate, at least for today. As we know, this is all subject to change. It changes on the daily. But as I've been saying, with all the new polling data, it's going to come down to Pennsylvania. And right now, Trump and Kamala are literally neck and neck. I think that will change after tonight, if I'm going to be honest.
We shall see.
Oh, that's right. You can't see. You have to watch the screen. I've got my election prediction map up from well, they're not our friends, but it's my favorite predictor map to use 270 to win. It is a very, very valuable resource. It has a prediction map based on previous elections and polling data. Now, I've gone ahead and colored in the swing states based upon the polls that I looked at today. Why is my background being weird? That's odd. I just realized
Yeah.
on this part.
Well, also, I don't think I'm on there.
Oh, we can see you.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to share that with everybody before we get started with the debate proper. And I'm going to do a really quick test here. See if you can hear this.
Lewandowski says both the news media and political leaders, who are often recruited from the political
Did you
extremes
start that
during
video over?
primaries, have played a role
No,
in deepening our
it's live.
Are you
divisions.
sure? Click live. It's not live. Click live.
It is. I
It's
promise.
not. It's not red. Click it where it says live because mine shows something completely different.
Oh, yep, you're right. I'm sorry for doubting you. But anyway, we're waiting for the debate to start.
Don't make me
Thanks.
turn into Frieza. Japanese Frieza.
Oh
One of my
gosh,
favorite Friezas, by the way.
it's up there. It's good. But okay, I guess I'll go ahead and get us framed up before I turn the old audio on.
Sure, I'm gonna try to figure this out. This PBS oh, dude, I'm a genius.
Wait a minute, I thought there was supposed to be no audience, or this is old footage.
No, you're good. I'm listen to it in my ears. Thank you.
Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you. Yes, thank you, everybody. Oh, Justin's fancy watching it on Disney Plus. Yes, it is on Disney Plus, Haley. Because ABC.
All right, my phone's being lame. There we go.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Know. I can.
All right.
Can you hear me? President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Polls show that the race is a coin flip, and a good performance could provide momentum for.
Alrighty.
All right.
We
go. Now I can hear you.
We've got the debate audio. We're good to go. I might change where we're at based on how they frame it on the screen here, but we are rip roaring to go. You got any predictions for tonight, buddy?
Is that a serious question?
Yeah.
Since they're going to cut off the mics, no. If they weren't going to cut the mics off, yeah, that'd be an issue because she won't shut up.
So fun fact though, apparently there's some internet bets going on Polymarket. Will Kamala Harris say weird at the debate? Apparently, if you bet 750, you're expected to win $4,166 if she does. Will Trump say Elon Musk at the debate? $2,000 bet will bring you a little over $5,000 if he does. Will Kamala say I'm speaking at the debate? A $500 bet will get you $3,100 if she does. Will Trump say MAGA 3 or more times at the debate? $250 will get you just shy of $900. But with that, oh, never mind. Oh God, we're still waiting. Come on, you're late.
You're not live again.
That's okay. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's weird.
All righty, here we go.
There we go.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Why did she introduce herself?
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So
okay, everybody can see it.
I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Nope.
When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Hell no.
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
That's a lie.
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan
so long
to
as they
build
make under
what I call
400
an
grand.
opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families
The cost of housing has risen because there's a lack
to raise
of houses.
their children, and I intend
Whose fault's
on
that?
extending a tax
Oh,
cut
it's a myriad
for
of
those
factors.
families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so
Second
that
to
those
Trump's.
young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them,
But not
is
food.
small businesses. I was actually, my mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent,
And
on
then
the other
tax
hand,
them at-
his plan is to
And
do
then
what
tax
he's
them
done
at
before.
40%.
which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations,
Oh, what's a
which will
bold-faced
result
lie,
in
Haley?
$5
Which
trillion
one?
to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month.
It's called a
Economists
tariff,
have
honey.
said that
They've existed
Trump
for a
sales
long
tax
time.
would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs
Oh,
of
yeah, it is
middle-class
a lie,
people
Haley.
paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect
Here we
statement.
go.
She knows that.
Yep.
We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after
There he goes.
75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
I mean, you can debate
And
on
the
tariffs, but
tariff
call it a
will be
tariff.
substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China.
This is
in fact,
true.
they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would
Exactly.
totally destroy everything that they've
It's
set
still
out to
on,
do.
by the way.
They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When
3.5
I had it,
years
I had
later, it's
tariffs,
still
and yet
there.
I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy
well, not
because
deflation.
inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries.
You
We
had
have
lower than
inflation
projected
like very
inflation.
few people have ever seen before. Probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago.
Well, you weren't at
This has been
21%
a disaster
inflation.
for
You were at
people,
9
for the middle
at the
class,
peak.
but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking
That wasn't the
jobs
majority,
that
but
are
it is a
occupied
problem.
right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions.
We need more
Unions are going to be
insane
affected
asylums.
very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country,
Biden.
and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the
curious to hear
greatest
Kamala's
economies in the
response.
history of our country. I'll do it again.
She's
and
going to be like,
even
I
better.
brought them
We are going to
over.
get
What
to
are you talking
immigration
about?
and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris
She's going to laugh
respond on
before
the
she even
economy
gets
here.
start talking.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment
fantastic
since
economy.
the Great Depression.
No,
Donald
COVID
Trump
left
left
us.
us the worst public health
The worst. Like,
epidemic in a
this
century.
bitch is serious.
Donald Trump left
He
us
didn't cause
the
that.
worst attack on our democracy
He left you a vaccine, too,
since the Civil
by the way.
War. And what we have done is clean up Donald
that
Trump's
doesn't work.
mess. What we have done and
Well,
what I
I
intend
mean-
to do is build on what we know are
You
the
know it.
aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're
Y'all.
going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch
Yeah,
of
the
lies,
Biden playbook.
grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight
Does
is
she
a
realize
detailed
that's what
and
she's
dangerous
doing?
plan called Project 2025 that the former
And there
president
it is.
intends on implementing if he were elected.
Did she not
again.
hear the
I believe very
Did she not
strongly
hear the?
that
Did you not hear the
American
head
people want
said
a
today
president who
that Donald Trump had
understands the
nothing to do with it?
importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have
She's
nothing to do, as you
stupid.
know, and as
She's
she
the
knows better
dumbest.
than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
And he does
That's
not.
out there. I haven't
There
read
we
it.
go.
I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before.
Yeah, I was
We
gonna
had
say,
the
'cause he's
greatest
done it
economy.
before.
We got hit with a pandemic.
Beautiful
And the
dogs.
pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died. Has there been anything like
Trump
it? We
knows
did a
history?
phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country
Bravo.
where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic.
Well, he
came
doesn't
in.
drink or do drugs.
Nobody's
He's gotta
ever seen
fill his time
anything
with
like it.
something.
We made ventilators for
I
the
mean-
entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the
did
military. They
put a
give
lot
me
of
credit for a
PPP
lot
out
of
there,
things,
PPE.
but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced
To
back.
be
and
fair,
it went to
Justin,
their
but the guy
benefit.
who
But I was
the
the one
guy
that
who
created them.
spearheaded
They know
it
and
said
so does
today
everybody else.
that Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with it.
So
People refuse to
Donald Trump
accept
has
it.
no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people.
No,
I am
that's
offering
a
what I
blatantly untrue
describe as an
statement. It's
opportunity
tax breaks for
economy,
everyone.
and the best economists in our country, if
I
not
read
the
it.
world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan
Yes,
would make
Goldman
the economy
Sachs, the
worse.
company that
Mine
should have
would
gone
strengthen
under
the
in
economy.
2008.
What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle
By
of
not
next
stealing
year would
taxpayers'
invite
money?
a recession. You just have to look at where we
Spend
are
less.
and where
It's
we
not that
stand on
hard.
the issues. And I'd invite
I
you to
would
know
just look at
that
scoreboard.
Donald Trump actually has no plan for
Christ,
you
Squidward.
because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just demonstrably not true.
I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors,
Oh, you see that, how
think
they
my
didn't turn
plan
his
is
mic
a
on?
brilliant plan.
We
It's
still
a great
heard it
plan.
anyway.
It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and
Because he's done it
create
before.
jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for
don't have
our,
to like him
for our
to
country.
realize
And just to finish
he was
off,
effective.
Solid.
she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Actually, they
Mr.
did
President,
see.
I do
They
want to
did
drill down on
find.
something
Her
you both
plan
brought
literally
up.
copies
The Vice
his.
President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever.
That's not really
China
accurate.
was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And you know, if she doesn't like them,
They
should
pass
have
on the
gone
cost
out
of
and
the
they should have
tariff to the
immediately cut
consumer.
the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years
But
now.
if your dollar
under
goes
their
further,
administration.
it's still a better
We are
economic
going to take
situation.
in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation.
You didn't have no
perhaps in the
inflation. You
history
had
of our
lower
country,
than projected
because
by
I've
the
never
Federal
seen a worse
Reserve,
period
which
of
is
time.
you had
People
under
can't go
2%,
out and
which
buy
is good.
cereal or
He said
bacon or
virtually. He
eggs or
didn't say
anything else.
fact.
Yeah, I'm
The
just I'm
people
clarifying.
of our country are
I know.
absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy, and all you have to do is
That
look
they
at a
did.
poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was
It's not
terrible.
90%.
Vice President Harris, I do want to
80
ask
some
for your
odd.
response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden
I
administration
know what the hell
did
he's talking
keep
about.
a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Oh,
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade
Bullshit.
wars. You want to talk about his
And a wonderful
deal
economy.
with China? What he ended up doing is under
wasn't a
Donald
deal.
Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out. When a policy
Oh,
about China
really?
should be
You
in
wanna
making
go down
sure
that
the
road?
United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century.
You really
which
wanna
means
go down that road,
focusing on the
Kamala.
details
Puddle.
of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI,
By
on quantum
imposing
computing.
tariffs on
Focusing
imported
on what we need
chips.
to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald
That's
Trump
all,
did,
folks.
let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. "Thank you, President Xi!" exclamation point.
And then when he found out they were lying to him, he took it back.
For lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump,
what?
First of all, they bought their chips from
So they admit
Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics. And he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
Haley hates the smug look on her face.
Lindsay.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights.
If you're
in your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, "I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks." But then the very next
that's
day,
a good line of
reversed
questioning. Trump's going to
and said you would vote to
here.
support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times.
That's funny.
Why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before. He said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that.
Look it up.
And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it.
Yeah, I know he said that, but Trump then inferred something different. I agree, it shouldn't be able to be done.
Fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something.
They basically said they would let the baby starve.
52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and
Trump
heart
is being
and
hyperbolic here, and that's going to hurt him.
6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions
that's true,
for rape, incest, and life of the mother.
The abortion
I believe strongly
movement
in it.
is
Ronald Reagan did also.
flipping.
85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio,
sounds like some democracy
the vote
to me.
was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people
because it's back
now.
to the
It's
states,
not tied up in the
it's up
federal
to the
government.
states.
I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it.
not a
And I give
one-size-fits-all.
tremendous
I
credit to
disagree,
those 6
actually, but-
justices.
There is no state in this country where
It's not a one-size-fits-all because other states are crazy and some
Vice
aren't.
President, I want to
So
get your
it's
response
like,
to
if you want to be that way over there,
Well, as I
have
said,
at
you're
it.
going to hear
I
a
don't
bunch
really
of
give a shit.
lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it
criminal
for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which
they're not Trump abortion bans if it's up to the state.
No, he literally said rape and incest are the
to their
two things
body
that were
does not have
exceptions
the
under
right
his.
to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That
Literally
is
on
immoral.
camera, you stupid,
And
stupid
one does
cunt.
not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around
It's not just
our
her body,
country.
but okay.
You want to talk about this
I wonder
is
what
people
Montel
wanted?
told her to do with her body.
Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest
Well, her
being
husband ain't
forced
a real
to
man
carry
if
a
he can't pull out.
pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban.
Donald needs to hit her with
his
that.
Project 2025,
Because
there
no
will
one
be a
wants it
national
back.
abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that
There's
certain
already a record of
freedoms,
miscarriages that happen in
particular the freedom
hospitals.
to make decisions about one's own body.
I'm sorry, but with all the
should not be made by the
CCTVs and
government.
everything like that,
Thank you,
like, what are they
Vice
talking about
President
freedom?
Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie.
Taxes galore.
I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion
It's
ban,
not necessarily a lie, but it's not something you can pin on Trump
but it
directly
doesn't matter
because it's up to the states.
This issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll
If it
never
doesn't
get
come
the
across
vote.
his desk
It's
to sign,
impossible
you
for her to get the
stupid
vote, especially
moderator.
now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House.
If you're watching,
She's not
throw
gonna
a
get
like
the
on the
vote.
video,
She can't
please.
get the vote. She won't
Get
even
the
come
algo
close
out
to
there.
it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe.
You
The
should have
student
done it
loans, and then
constitutional.
I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students
That's true.
got
They do keep trying it.
taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans.
Hey, I
They
already
didn't
gave
get
you a
it for
solution
free.
for student
But they were
loans.
saying
Forgive the
it's same
interest, but
way
not the
that
principal.
They talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes
And
or no,
stop
because your running mate,
federally
Janet
subsidized.
Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD. In all fairness, JD, and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They
Too much power
taunted
for the federal
young
government. Just
people
say that.
and a lot of
Way
other
too much
people that
power.
had loans. They can
Don't
never
need-
get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I
Ooh, good
absolutely
question.
support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And
Good
as
answer.
you rightly mentioned, nowhere
Talk
in
with your hands and
America
use your words, bitch.
is a woman
No, that was a good
carrying
answer.
a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans.
what?
Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatment.
No, they're not.
He said he supports
What
IVF.
is happening in our country?
He wants to subsidize
Working
IVF.
people, working women
Yeah, I'm okay
who
with
are
that.
working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs.
As one generally does when you get on a
Barely
plane.
can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable.
So you're saying people can afford to do that? Get on a plane just to get an abortion?
The majority of Americans
just raise the
believe
kid?
in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body.
Hey man, and all I'm saying,
that is
condoms are
why
less than $1.
In every state where this issue has been on the ballot,
piece.
in red
They're
and
less than
blue
$1 a
states
piece.
both, the people of
And don't
America
worry,
have voted
you're not
for
big
freedom.
enough, guys.
Vice President.
Yeah,
Excuse me,
no
I have to
break.
respond. Another lie. It's another lie.
It is another
I have
lie.
been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader.
He forgot in
fact,
vitro.
when they got a very negative decision
It's
on
fertilization.
IVF from the Alabama courts,
He said
I saw
IVF.
the people of Alabama
I
and
know,
the
but then he said it's
legislature 2 days
fertilization.
later voted
Oh.
it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a
This
leader
is true.
on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
He forgot in vitro.
you should ask.
In vitro.
I'm a
Will
leader in
she allow
fertilization.
abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do
Hey,
that?
her mic's not muted.
Why don't you ask her
Why,
that
why
question?
my
don't you
point.
answer
That's
the
the problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under
Why is her
Roe v.
mic not
Answer the
muted?
question, would you veto?
You could do
Oh,
abortions
we
in the
breaking the rules now?
7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President
Okay,
Trump, thank
he
you.
We're
did
going to
say
turn now
that.
to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board.
Since when?
In this
Oh,
country.
here we go.
Vice President Harris, you were
This is gonna be a
tasked by
shit
President
show.
Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know
When
that
she was the
illegal
what?
border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This
Borders
past June,
are-
President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the
No,
numbers
he
since
didn't.
then have dropped significantly.
Oh,
But
I
my
mean, he
question
means
to you
like,
tonight
okay.
is why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything
wonder
differently
why.
for President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Well, Donald
And
Trump's
let
not
me
a
say
prosecutor,
that
so
the United States
You almost got an
Congress,
innocent man
including
killed,
some of
too.
the most conservative
That's actually
members
not
of the
true.
United States Senate,
he's still in
came
prison,
up
by
with
the
a
way.
border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put
was on death
1,500
row and they
more
got him off
border
of it.
He's
agents
still-
on
no,
the
he's
border
still
to
on
help
death row. You
those
can look
folks
it
who
up.
are working there right now
The
overtime,
DNA
trying
evidence
to
was
do
granted
their
and it
job.
did not exonerate
It
him.
would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into
I know,
the
I was
United
surprised
States.
too.
I
I
know
was
there are
surprised
so
too.
many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have
What
put
was that
more
look from
resources to
Trump?
You
allow us
loud.
to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to
Why'd
that
you
bill?
All
stop?
those kids on the backs
Donald
of coyotes.
Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know
That is-
why? Because
that is
he
not-
preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a
Oh,
problem.
like you?
And understand, this comes at a time
So when you
where
do
the
it, it's
people
cool.
of our country actually need a leader who
And because
engages
the
in
bill
solutions,
was the shits.
who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer
Nobody
to run on a
supports
problem
her.
instead
There's
of
no
fixing
way.
a problem.
Hey,
And I'll
Kamala,
tell you
Joe
something,
Biden's
he's
still the
gonna talk
president,
about immigration
technically.
a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual.
No, he's
and I'm
not.
going to invite you to
He's on the
attend one of
beach.
Donald Trump's rallies. Because it's
Okay.
a
That
really
That Nazi
interesting
right
thing
there
to
is in the
watch.
White House.
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter.
Kamala,
He
how
will
do you
talk
know
about
that?
Windmills cause
Have you been there?
cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you
no,
will not hear him
people-
talk
from the
about
people-
windmills
is
do
you.
leak into the ground.
You will
and they
not
do
hear him
affect
talk
rain-
about
they
your
do affect
needs, your
groundwater,
dreams,
so
and your desires.
Kamala,
hard to look
people-
up.
And I'll tell you, I
People
believe
leave
you
your rallies after
deserve
Megan Thee
a
Stallion is
president
done
who
performing.
actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
That's actually true.
President
There's
Harris,
video.
Thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to give you a response.
Well, I would
And
like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing
Fuck
them
your
in
question.
and paying them to be there. and then showing them in a different
There were
light.
leaked emails
So she
paying
can't talk
people
about
to-
that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
My crowds are
That's
the
because
biggest.
people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III,
We're going
just to go
downhill
into
so
another
fast,
subject.
it's not even funny.
What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United
Not
States.
gonna lie,
And a lot of
Kamala's
towns don't
actually
want to
doing
talk.
better
Not
than I
going to be
thought she would.
Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed.
We're
by
only
it.
30 minutes
Sort
in,
of.
though.
Springfield,
She's not really holding
they're
up to
eating
anything.
the
Everything she's
dogs,
saying
the
makes
people
zero
that came
sense.
in. They're eating the cats. They're eating.
Ah.
They're eating the pets
Trump.
of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Dude, I literally
and it's
just
a
watched a
shame.
video
as
of
far
a
as
woman
rallies are
taking a
concerned,
freaking
as
pigeon
far
out of
as
a
the
person's
reason they
hand.
go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country,
So
and if she
cringy, though.
becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being
cry.
Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio,
No shit.
and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this,
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
The people on
this is a
television say
clar-
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the
say
Exactly.
the dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the
I mean, a
Springfield
city manager
says
would
there's no
never
evidence of
lie.
that.
I'm not
We'll
saying
find
it's
out. I'll let you
necessarily
respond to the rest
accurate,
of
but
it.
yeah,
Right.
like Trump said, we'll find
You
out.
talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush,
Such a
Mitt
punchable
Romney,
face.
and John McCain, including the
Now.
endorsement of former Vice
Mine.
President Dick
No one
Cheney
else's.
and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside
because
track
Liz
on
Cheney's been a
who
Republican
the former president is, if he didn't make
for a
it clear
while.
already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the
That's like
Constitution
McCain's
of the
kids
United
acting
States.
like they're Republicans.
His
I'm
former
like,
national
okay.
security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would
Really?
never
You think she
survive
stutters, Virus?
another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people
stutters
are
quite a
not
bit.
being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you, because when I hear
Thank
that,
you.
see, I'm a
dying.
different kind of a person. I fired most of those people.
He did.
Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people
there he goes.
who's were just killed viciously and
just
violently
liver
killed. And I
shot.
got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen.
Did you get nabbed?
So when somebody does a bad job,
got nabbed.
I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I
Wow.
fired him. So he writes a book.
Wow.
Another one writes a book. Because with
Trump
me, they can write books.
flipped
With nobody
that
else can they?
masterfully.
But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at
All
the
right.
economy.
Tell me if
look
it gets
look
annoying,
at
but
the
I gotta walk
inflation.
around.
They didn't fire
Yep,
any
you're
of
good,
their
buddy.
economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far.
Yeah, no shit, Virus.
In fact,
Boom.
I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation.
He didn't let
proposal
Kamala
that the
answer
Vice
about
President has
Afghanistan.
reacted to
Interesting.
as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history
Another
of
one
our
writes
country.
a
You say
book.
you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah.
No.
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed
You say no?
common street criminals. They allowed
It's
people
not
to come in,
feasible.
drug dealers to come into our country, and they're
And
now
frankly-
in the United
and
States
frankly-
and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't
It's not
ever come
inaccurate.
back or we're going to kill you.
Population
Do you know
has
that
grown now.
crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is
I think
way
anyone
down.
who's
You know
guilty of
why?
crime,
Because they've taken their criminals
absolutely.
off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes. But it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
So what about
Despite
the
their
people that were
fraudulent
trafficked and
statements that
brought
they
here
made,
against their will?
Crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as
Well,
you know,
he
the
didn't
FBI
say
says
illegal
overall
virus. He
violent
said
crime is
undocumented.
actually
I
going
want
down in this
clarification
country.
on
But
that.
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris, I'll
FBI
give you
they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
debating
just like
undocumented
their
versus
number of
illegal?
818,000 jobs that they said they created
I'm
turned
aware,
out to
but
be a
people
fraud.
don't
President
always
Trump, thank you.
use
I'll let you
them
respond, Vice
equally.
President Harris.
Well, I think this is so
Accurately?
rich.
Okay.
Accurately.
Coming from someone who has been prosecuted
I got you.
for
Oh, here she goes.
national security crimes, economic crimes,
Look at her. No.
election
No.
interference.
Joe
has
Biden, they
been
wouldn't
found
prosecute Joe
liable
Biden because he
for
was old and
sexual
incompetent.
assault, and his next big court appearance is in November
Yeah,
at his
so-
own criminal
I love you,
sentencing.
Kamala.
And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement,
Dude, literally just
45,000
hijacked him.
agents, get this, on the day after he was
Damn.
arraigned on
Kamala,
34 felony
Kamala.
counts.
You
So
were a
let's
major
talk about
proponent
what
of
is
defund the
important
police.
in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we
You're
turn
on video.
the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we
that was
must
a
do to
turn.
support our small businesses, address bringing
Don't
down
want
the
to stick
price
on
of
defunding the
groceries.
police, huh?
But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
I know, that's
President
why
Harris,
Trump
thank you.
needs to win.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm
Yep.
winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They
Well, it
weaponized
has,
the Justice
but-
Department.
Term
Every one of those
things.
cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the
Hey, good
Attorney
job
General
for
of New York,
pronouncing
and the
it
DA
right.
in New
Good
York.
job.
Every
But
one of
you have a
those
plan
cases.
for the housing crisis,
and then
but yet-
they say, "Oh,
Where have you
he
been the
was
last 3
he's a
years?
criminal."
4.
They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden
You're
was
right.
found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, "Oh, that's the toughest of them all." A complete and
He's not
total
wrong.
victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization,
It was thrown
and they
out,
used
Kamala.
it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it
Kamala
to try
Kazi.
and win an election. They're
President Trump-
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President
She's killing
Harris, on
her
this
own
notion
career.
of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well,
Is-
let's talk about extreme
She's a
and
millionaire
understand the context
now.
in which
She's
this election
fine.
in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who
Within
has
his
openly
official
said
capacity
he
of the
would
president.
terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States.
That is not
that he
true.
would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
That's
Someone who
not
has
exactly what he
openly
said.
expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand
Not
what
true.
it
That
would
was
mean if
debunked.
Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know
Hey,
now
these
the
days,
court
if
won't
there's not a
stop him. We know
recording, I
J.D.
don't believe
Vance
it.
is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
Weaponized, please. This is the one that weaponized.
So we're not talking about
me.
the weaponization
She
of the
weaponized.
DOJ?
I
Just completely
probably took
ignoring
a
them?
bullet
Trump-
to the
Trump
head
just did.
because of the things that they say
No,
about
she
me.
did. Like,
They
he
talk
asked
about
her.
democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
The moderator.
They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake
Trump.
Russia investigation.
Oh, you
that
didn't
went
call out
nowhere.
that she
We have a
didn't
lot
get
to
any
get to,
primary
Lindsay.
votes.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't.
Okay,
You wanted
good.
mandatory government
It ain't
buyback
over yet,
programs
buddy.
for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported
I'm actually-
decriminalizing border
No,
I'm liking
crossings.
them.
Now you're taking a harder line.
I'm okay
I know
with
you
these
say that
moderators.
your values have not changed. So then why have so many of
As
your
long as
policy
they shut up, that's all that
positions
matters.
changed?
I'm like Chris
So
Wallace.
my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact,
Because you
I was
can't.
When your
the
side is full of
tie-breaking
mentally ill
vote on
people
the
and you talk
Inflation
to them about that
Reduction
kind of
Act,
stuff,
which opened
yeah,
new
it's gonna kinda
leases
happen.
for fracking.
Yes, after
My
3
position
years.
is that we have got to invest
After
in
canceling the
diverse
Keystone XL
sources of
pipeline
energy
on-
so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had
Which
the
you could have
largest
done at the beginning of
increase
the
in
term.
domestic oil production in history.
And it's not
because
just
of an
her, it's Joe
approach that
Biden, too.
recognizes
Are you
that
on
we
YouTube
cannot over-rely
on your
foreign oil.
on that? Can
As
you
it
turn on
relates to my
captions?
values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle
I
class
don't
kid,
think
raised by
I don't
a
think
hardworking
people will
mother
ever be able to see them.
who worked and
'cause
saved
we're in the way.
and was able to buy our
No,
first
for
home
me,
when I was
so
a
I can read them.
teenager.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The values I bring to the importance
Because
of home
my
ownership, knowing not
apparently I
everybody
lost
got
connection
handed
on.
$400
I'm
million
good on my
on
phone,
a
but-
silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times.
Yeah. Okay, that
Is a
sucks.
value that I bring to
So now
my
I gotta-
work.
I got- I
to
gotta
say
read it
we
in
are
their
going
voice in my
to
head.
work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes,
I was gonna
increase
say,
by
we are
3 million homes
going
by the end of my first term.
to
My
work with the
work
private
that
sector
is
and home
related
builders to
to
increase-
having
No,
a
okay.
friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most
So
vulnerable.
you still haven't answered the
My work
question.
that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare
You still
is
haven't
based
answered
on
the question.
long-standing work that I have done,
Not even close.
protecting seniors from scams. My
still haven't answered the
values
question.
have not changed.
Okay, here we go, here we
and
go.
what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and
Oh,
a
so why have your
perspective
views
that is about
changed?
lifting people up and not beating people down.
You still haven't answered
And
the
name
question.
calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be
Okay,
that
Tony
president.
Robbins.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was
I
a
intend to
Brooklyn
be that
builder, Brooklyn,
president.
Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years.
Billions and
Defund
billions
the
of
police,
dollars.
she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff
She
up.
never did answer the
very
question.
wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing
be
at
fair,
it, okay? They're
he
all
generally
laughing at
never
it.
answers
She gave up
questions either.
at least 12 and probably 14 or 15
answers the
different
questions
policies.
that weren't
Like,
asked.
she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out.
You-
wait a minute,
you
I'm
were.
talking now. If you don't mind, please.
Shit.
Does that sound familiar? She went out.
I need my video back.
She went out in Minnesota
on?
and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal
Well,
that
she
would
said
do
that
this. She
prior.
wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in
Huge on defund the
Pennsylvania.
police.
If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will
Oh, my
end
gosh.
on day one. Just
The
to finish
adults are
one thing,
talking.
so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took
Natural
over,
gas, too.
they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof.
double check your
They
thing, make sure it's
immediately
live.
let these guys go to where they were.
I
I
don't
would have
feel- I
been
don't feel that we're
5
synced.
times, 4
Okay, yeah,
times,
you're
5
good.
times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what
And
happened
he
to
is-
gasoline.
that's
So they
She
should
100%
literally
go back to
correct.
Trump.
Joe
But if she
Biden
won the election, the
wanted to
day
get rid
after
of
that
fracking, or
election,
wanted to keep
they'll go
fracking.
back to
She
destroying
did
our
not
country.
say
And
herself.
oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills.
We have
and
a
we'll
short
go back
on our
to
channel that
solar,
shows a
where they
video of
need a
Kamala
whole
Harris saying
desert
that
to
she
get
wants to
some
ban
energy
fracking
to come
in
out. You ever see a
2019.
solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar.
No, she says
But
Joe
they take
Biden in the video. Go back to it.
400,
She never says
500
herself.
acres of
No,
desert
she's-
President
soil.
Trump,
You're
we have
thinking
a
of a
lot
different
other
short.
things
Yeah,
we
prove it,
have
prove
to
it
get
wrong.
to.
Yeah,
We're out of
tell me
time.
which one.
It's on our channel.
Lindsay,
It's a
thank you.
short.
We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy.
Wait, she
and
said
the
she
role
wanted
of
to
a
ban
president
fracking or
She
not?
in a moment of
wants. She
crisis.
wants to.
Mr.
ban
President, on
fracking.
January 6th,
Okay, yeah, you
told
confused
your
me because
supporters
I
to
was
march
saying
to
that
the
she
Capitol.
said
You
that
said
Joe
you would be
Biden
right
said
there with
that
them. The country and the world
no
saw what
banning of
played out at the
fracking.
Capitol that day. The officers coming under
Confusing
attack.
ass motherfucker.
Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
Yep.
You just said
That's a good
thing
question.
that isn't covered.
The way he phrased it.
Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a
Go peacefully.
disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world.
And that's true.
And
That's been
crime rates are
documented.
down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big
She's the border
percentage
czar.
of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
There you go.
But let me just ask
You might ask
Get
her
'em,
that
Donnie.
question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put
Stop
it back in
interrupting.
writing, as
Shut
you
up.
know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or
Oh, I
whatever
think
you
you're
want
way
to call
off
it.
somehow.
And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected
told
me.
you
Nancy
we weren't
Pelosi
synced up.
rejected me. It was just 2
Yeah,
weeks
but I
ago.
think I'm
Her
ahead of
daughter
you.
has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible
I
for
wonder
what
what the,
happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy
Yeah, I don't
Pelosi
know.
and the mayor of Washington
difference
did
for
their
us.
jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about
And,
former Speaker
he-
Pelosi. But
he
I do
did
want Vice
answer the
President Harris
question.
to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob
He did not.
to attack our nation's capital.
Now, I don't agree
desecrate
with the people
our
that
nation's
did anything
capital.
violent on that day. There's an episode. You can see I was
140
pissed
law
off.
enforcement officers were injured.
But what you're saying is
And
just
some
not
died.
true.
And understand,
Not on the day of.
the
Not on the
former
day of.
president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason.
And
But this is not an isolated
he was
situation.
acquitted.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where
God,
there
this
was
again.
a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were
God
fine
damn,
people
dude,
on
it's
each
so
side.
played out. Oh
Let's
my
remember.
god.
It's already been
That
debunked.
when it came to
He
the
was
So
talking
Cowboys
about
and
the. He was
militia,
talking about the people
the
that were
president
on
said, the
Same
former
dead
president
Lord.
said, stand back
Well,
and
he was
stand
talking about
by.
the people that were on either side
So
of
for
the statues
everyone
being
watching
removed
who
debate.
remembers what
He
January
openly
6th
disavowed
was,
white supremacy multiple
I say
times.
we don't have
multiple
to go
times
back.
over the years.
Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand
Are you
for
fundraising again?
country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is
I mean, if you're just looking
the
scoreboard,
foundations of our democracy,
there's
'cause
way
you
more
don't like the
chaos to blame
outcome.
on the Biden
And be
administration.
clear on that point, Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. Those people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won.
Do me a favor and pause your video for about 6 seconds.
In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker.
So, this is pretty wild.
That you
She's
quote,
doing pretty
didn't
well,
quite
though.
make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote.
I don't know about
and
that
that's
part.
why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you do a special on it, I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter.
The fact remains that a lot of states changed their election laws.
That's old news. And the
which
problem
is
that we have
technically
right
legal,
now
although it
is
was
we have
dubious in some
a
places.
nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes
no,
he
said
did
he
not
said
lose
it.
the
He said it
election,
was sarcastic.
That was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, "We won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote." Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
He's not trying to suppress the vote. He's saying he's going to punish people.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election.
Again,
And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States.
Talking about.
And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny
she wasn't hired by one person. Well, I mean, technically, yes, one person, Joe Biden.
Lost because you did, in fact, lose that election. It leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute.
That's why Putin is endorsing her, right?
World leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men. They call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president.
He did say that.
They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7,
Hamas,
a terrorist organization,
in my mind, I heard January,
slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
You're still way ahead of me, FYI.
Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal, and we need the hostages out. And so we need Hamas out of power in Gaza. On that, work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution.
That's not going to work.
Solution.
They've demonstrated it time and again.
Security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will
Then you need to
assure
get rid of
always,
Hamas.
I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to
When you're
Iran
not holding back munitions.
and any threat that Iran and
Oh,
its
and after
proxies
you gave
pose to
Iran
Israel.
$6 million?
But we must have a two-state solution.
Good job.
Where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have
Oh,
security,
$6 billion. I'm sorry, not 6 million. I
and the
misspoke.
dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way,
I
for
was
4
wrong.
years,
16
have
billion.
gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than
Still too
people
much.
understand what's going on over there.
Oh, no, it was higher.
But when she
About
mentions
16 billion
about
too much.
Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet.
Oh, I guess the most
with
recent one was
Netanyahu
6
when
billion.
he went to Congress
in
to
that
make a
single
very
deal.
important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a
She did.
sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the
true.
sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's
That's true,
president,
Kamala.
I
You
believe
were not
that
there.
Israel will not exist within 2 years from now.
Maybe
And
you
I've
did
been
have a
pretty good at
pre-existing date,
predictions,
but
and
it's
I hope I'm
factually
wrong
true.
about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under
The
Donald
video's
Trump.
moving really slow
Now
for
Iran
me,
has
so Trump's mouth is
$300
moving really slow.
billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no
That's
money
true.
for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres
Terror.
of terror. Horrible terror.
Terror.
They had no money. It
The
was a
terror.
big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around.
And it's
Look at
funny
what's
because
happening
many people
with the
said when they
Houthis
gave that
and
money to
Yemen.
Iran, they
Look
were
at
like,
what's
oh, they're
going on
going to
in the
fund
Middle
terror
East.
groups.
This would have never happened. I will get
Guess what
that
they did.
settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris,
And
who
he
says
will.
you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people.
Not
he knows
well.
that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract.
That's a very
from the
strange way of
reality,
showing it.
Which is, it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators,
Somehow we lost
wants to be a dictator
Eric.
on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine.
Ah, there you
There
go.
we
It
go.
is well
There we
known
are.
that he said when Russia
Jeez,
went into
it disappeared
Ukraine,
on me.
it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting
That's the
for
funny thing
you
about
to
the
be
internet out
president
there.
again
It's
because
not
they're
reliable.
so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in
Are
highest
we having
regard our military.
Vice President
difficulties?
Harris, thank you.
Hang on, I just have to.
She's the one.
Hang on, I'm going to pause it real quick, everybody, while I fix this. Okay. Should be able to. Something when you cut out and I was trying to invite you back in, apparently I pushed something. Okay, there we go.
That caused it. That's weak
Well, my
on
internet's
national
back up
security
completely,
by
so everything's
allowing
going.
every nation last month for the year 168 different countries sending people into our country.
There
Their
we go.
crime rates are way down.
All right.
Putin endorsed her last
So I think
week.
we're synced up
Said, "I
now."
hope she wins," and I think he meant it. Because
Yeah,
what
Putin
he's
did
gotten
endorse
away
her
with
last
is
week,
absolutely
although she can't control
incredible.
that.
It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approved the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe, because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Like the Keystone Pipeline wasn't a huge issue. Seriously?
Yeah, for real. So I am just going to mute
That
that
would
real
have saved
quick.
us so much money on our gas prices. Yeah, mute that shit.
Yeah, she's muted, so we can annoy people. So really quick, I'm going to take an opportunity to tell everybody about our second sponsor. Do you have an idea or a dream, but you just don't know how to make it happen, or do you just need funding? Well, our friends at Force Sand Corporation can help you. They specialize in a great many things, but their Imagineers can help you take your even the most basic idea, help you get funding, help you make it a reality. 4sandcorporation.com. Our friends will help you. That's the number 4sandcorporation.com. Alrighty. Yeah, I gotta say, unfortunately for Trump, Kamala's doing better than I thought she would, but she's not doing
Listen,
exceptionally well.
She's speaking clearly and she's saying big, nice, flashy things, but none of those things that she is saying is literally anything she is doing now. So
Agreed,
how
but
can
the
we
thing
be
is,
sure that, huh?
but the thing is, it'll work. It'll work for a lot of people. Now,
Yeah, because people are stupid in big
well, yeah,
groups.
yeah. Well, cynical people like me, and I mean, I do this with Trump too. But I mean, there's just as far as I can tell, because I'll admit my bias here. This is my opinion, but as far as I can tell, the vast majority of what Trump is saying and proposing makes sense. The vast majority of what Harris is proposing and saying makes no sense. Harris debuted her platform on her website today, 40 some odd days after she was made the nominee. Like that's ridiculous. And in fact, I had read today that they looked at the source code of the policies on her website, and it was the same source code as Biden's presidential website. So she's running the same platform as Biden with a little bit more, even further left stuff. So I mean, the thing is, if you're a lefty and a fan of more socialist leaning policies, more Marxist style policies, more social aid, then great, vote for Kamala Harris. That's all. That's right up your alley. She's your candidate. If, however,
She's your lady.
because she's your lady. For now,
That's ridiculous. Damn it.
what?
I keep an eye on our videos to make sure they're staying in sync because it's awkward for me to react to something that happened for you 12 seconds earlier.
Yeah, and it's not like you can watch our stream because there's a delay.
Yeah,
It's a bummer.
lame.
It's a bummer. Well, while we're waiting for the debate to come back, don't forget to visit steviewicks.com. Use promo code AIP to get 10% off your candle order. Get your Halloween ones. This is a little too spicy pumpkin for my liking.
What time is it? 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we got about another 30 minutes left of the debate. So
Yeah.
Trump has lost his, I wouldn't say lost his, because not for Trump. Trump has gotten a little aggressive a couple of times. I don't know that will hurt him, though. Because, again, Trump supporters like it. It might put off the odd independent, but again,
if there was someone else to vote for, sure.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, there is, because some of the episodes coming forward, we still have to do our deep dive on J.D. Vance. I'm going to be doing a deep dive on the Libertarian candidate. And speaking of which, are you? No, people. I'm just informing people.
I'm just messing with you.
Do we want to? Maybe not next week, but do we want to do a review of Am I Racist? Matt Walsh's new docu-comedy.
Well, we'll talk more and try to get that figured out, because the only time I have is during the day, and then you're at work.
Constantly, yes. Oh, I thought we were back for a second. Oh, are we back?
Are you seeing the National Constitution Center? Or are you seeing what's on the
Right now it says
on what you're
frontline.
seeing? All right.
I think we're back. Yes.
Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay
Check
Davis.
your thing.
Welcome
Is it
back
live?
to this historic ABC News presidential for the
Sorry, I'm
break
not
tonight.
trying to scream.
How exactly would you do
Oh,
that?
no, it
think you're
wasn't
live.
live because I was delayed.
PBS NewsHour, your source.
Okay, cool.
Are experiencing the highest rate of increase.
Now you're way
Center
behind.
in Philadelphia.
Welcome back to this historic
Yeah,
ABC
he just
News
said welcome
presidential
back.
debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in
Well, make
Ukraine.
sure
We're
it's
now
on
2.5
live, because
years
if
Well,
we're
no,
not
because
into this
we'll
conflict.
have
Mr.
skipped
President,
something
it has
then.
been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia. From
If I make it
Vladimir
live
Putin,
now,
to
we'll
defend
skip
their
part of
sovereignty,
it.
their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight.
All right, I guess
How
that makes sense that I
exactly
can just
would
pause
you
mine.
do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop.
Damn,
I
how
want
the
to
hell did I get
save
so ahead of
lives
you?
that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions.
Because I
It's
paused
the
it,
millions.
remember?
It's so
I
much
know.
worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're
I mean,
in
that's
for
fairly typical
250
in the
billion
middle
or
of a
more.
war.
Because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening.
Well, she's laughing, but
We're
that's
in
what he
for
did, and they ponied up.
250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody.
He's gonna have to
They
go
don't
over
even
and
try
spank
and get it.
Zelensky
That
and
is
be
a
like, "We ain't
war
giving you
that's
no more
dying
money."
to be settled. I will get it settled before I even
Well, he
become
didn't say stop
president.
giving
If I
him money.
win,
He said
when I'm
Europe has to pay
president-elect,
their fair
and
share.
what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other,
Or
I'll get them
potentially be like,
together.
"You owe us money,
That war
Ukraine."
would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left,
I mean, a lot of it is loans,
unfortunately
but
left
they're
because
never going to pay him
our
back.
country has gone to hell.
Exactly,
But
that's
after
the
I left,
point.
when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it.
Biden
And now
doesn't
you
even know
have
how to
millions
talk,
of people
period.
dead, and it's
Yeah.
only getting worse, and it could lead to
We're
World
gonna-
War
we're
III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with
We're
World War
sending
III,
back.
and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's
We're
a
gonna
president.
send Putin back to
They threw him out of a
Beijing.
campaign
Seriously,
like
where's
a
our
dog.
president?
We don't even know. Is he our
No,
president?
he's at the beach.
But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify on the
It's so
question,
true. Weekend at
do you
Bernie's,
believe
dude.
it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice
And
President Harris. I want to get
that's
your
the
thoughts
crazy thing.
on,
That's
support
actually
for Ukraine
the best
in this
answer.
moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would
No,
it be any
this will
different
be
from
good.
what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to
I'm glad he
remind the
asked it
former
that way.
president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I
Because
believe the reason that Donald Trump
Because of his
says that this
cognitive
war would
decline.
be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's
That-
not who we are as Americans.
not
Let's
what he
understand what
said.
happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded,
Have you met with Putin?
tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania.
What?
And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense.
The stream on
and
that.
because of
Wait,
our support,
we
because
can.
of the
No,
air
just
defense,
let it
the
go, but
ammunition,
we'll talk.
the
It's gonna be over
artillery,
soon.
the javelins,
Remember that.
the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
She
And
just
understand what that
fucking
would
said
mean.
she gave him
because
intelligence.
Putin's
She
agenda
did.
is not just about Ukraine.
To protect
Understand
himself.
why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president.
That
and
might
that
have been a
we
colossal fuck up.
understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO. And
There's a lot
what
of crazy
we have
rednecks
done
out there, Kamala. You
to
better be careful.
preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence.
Did she just admit to
Otherwise,
giving
Putin would be sitting in Kyiv
military
with his
intelligence to a
eyes on the
foreign
rest
nation as
of
the vice
Europe,
president of the
starting
United
with
States?
Poland. And why don't you
Granted,
tell
it
the
could
800,000
not
Polish
be
Americans
American
right here in Pennsylvania
intelligence, but
how
regardless,
quickly
it's
you would give
intelligence.
up
Well, that
for
actually
the
is an
sake
important
of
distinction.
favor
But
and
nobody
what you
would
think
care.
is a friendship with
Hold on.
what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
He
Vice
didn't, but
President
okay.
Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour.
Is no
I
one
wanted
going
her
to
to
say
respond
anything
to
about
something you
that?
said earlier, and now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it.
We don't know
but just so
nothing
you
about Russia.
understand,
That's what's
they
scary.
sent her to negotiate peace
I think
before
we
this
know
war
plenty about
started.
Russia.
3 days later, he went
No, I'm
in
not talking
and he
about that.
started
We don't
the
know their
war
stockpiles.
because
That dude's
everything
so
they said
secretive.
was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That
I mean,
war
they sent
should have
Boris
never
Johnson over
started.
there to tear
She
up the
was
Minsk
the
agreement,
emissary.
to convince
They sent
Zelensky
her
to
in
tear
to
up the Minsk
negotiate
agreement.
with Zelensky and Putin, and she did.
Yes,
and the
it is
war
true.
started 3
Oh,
days
maybe
later.
not her.
And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Nope.
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one.
Back
When
it up
I
then.
went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times.
Okay. We
The
asked you about
reality
Putin.
is, it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength,
Like not using people,
understanding that
not
the
using your own
alliances
people as
we
human
have
shields,
around
not
the
keeping
world
military
are
equipment and
dependent
caches in
on our
hospitals and
ability to
schools.
look out for our friends
Like
he asked
that.
about
and not
Putin, so why
favor
are
our
you dodging the
enemies because
question?
you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much
Says
what
the
is
woman
at
who
stake
didn't
here.
receive a
the
primary
President
vote.
of the United States is commander-in-chief, and the American people have a right
I
to
don't know why I said that. I
rely
don't mean that.
on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about
You
Ukraine
You
and
do-
Vladimir
sold
Putin. I do want to talk
intelligence.
about Afghanistan. It came up in the
You
first
do
hour
know
of this
that
debate.
no new war started
I wanted
under
to move on
Donald
to
Trump. He
Afghanistan.
signed.
Said Trump did the most
He's-
amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head
Abraham
of NATO.
Accords.
He said, I've never
The
seen.
most
For
amazing thing
years,
I've
we
ever
were paying
saw.
almost all of NATO.
It was
we
incredible.
were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and
Bill
on
Michael
NATO.
Jackson did- Mac
I got
Michael
them to
Bennett-
pay up by saying
can't
one of the
talk.
statements you made before. If you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank
love
you.
how
I
he
want to turn to Afghanistan.
steamrolls through
It came
people.
up in the first hour of the debate, and we
Okay,
witnessed
this will
a
be good.
poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Good
Well, I will
question.
tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300
Zero
million a day we were
accountability
paying
right
for
there,
that
people.
endless
Zero
war.
accountability.
And as of today, there is
This
not
should be
one
Look at him smiling. He
member
knows.
of the
He knows
United
she's
States
not taking
military who
accountability.
is in active duty in a combat
Typical.
zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we
Is
are.
Iraq not a combat
Donald Trump,
zone?
when he was president, negotiated
Legit question.
one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it
Notice
was
you
a
didn't
weak,
answer the question.
terrible deal. And here's
At
how
all.
it went down. He
waiting.
bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban.
So did
The
you.
negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this,
It's the same
and
deal you.
the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans.
you let
a
them
place
take
where
over
we
every
honor
U.S.
the
military
importance
base
of
in the
American
country,
diplomacy, where we invite
taking
and receive
billions of dollars of
respected
military
world
equipment,
leaders.
including weapons,
And
which they
this-
fucking paraded around last month.
Former president, as president, invited them to Camp David
And told
because
them
he
that if they
does
didn't
not,
live up to
again,
their term of the
appreciate
agreement, that it was
role
off and he
and
would fucking kill them.
responsibility of the president
You know
of
what
the
her
United
voters think of
States
Trump voters?
to be commander-in-chief with a level
They think
of
that
respect.
they can't read and
No,
they're
And
stupid.
this gets
No,
back
they
to
literally-
the
they
point
probably
of
sit
how
there and
he has
think they're like, oh,
consistently
they're probably in their
disparaged and
houses.
demeaned
Like,
members
I
of our
love
military,
Afghan. I got one of them
fallen
on the back of my
soldiers,
chair.
and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America
So are you
around
responsible
the
or
world.
not?
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you
Zero
began the
Yeah,
negotiations
thank
with the
you.
Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force.
Dude, is he
within
literally talking about the
Afghanistan.
beautiful
They don't
dogs?
bother doing that because, you know, they
No,
deal with
not
the wrong
yet.
people all the time. But I got involved.
They were beautiful
And
dogs.
Abdul is the head
I said,
of
"Why
the
are you
Taliban.
crying,
He is
Kamala?"
still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said,
Abdul,
why do you
don't.
send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
And
on.
these people did the worst withdrawal.
Yeah, of course you wanna
and
move on.
In my opinion, the most embarrassing
you know
moment in
Kamala's
the
in
history of our
trouble.
country. And
Of
by
course
the
you wanna
way,
move on.
that's why Russia attacked Ukraine,
Come to her
because they
rescue.
saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President,
She
you
didn't
recently
answer.
said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she
Are
was
we
black
really?
until a number of
Really?
years ago.
We're really
when
not
she
going to bring her
happened
to
turn
task on
black,
this.
And now she
Last
wants to
person in
be
the room,
known
we're
as
really
black.
going to gloss
I
over
want to
this.
ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the
Of course,
racial
let's talk about
identity of
race.
your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean,
Because
all
they
I
make
can
a big
say is
deal
I
out
read
about it.
where
That's
she
what he was talking about.
Not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black,
Indian.
and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone
We're all
who
shades of weed anyway, so
wants to
shut
be
the fuck
president
up.
who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
I
You
think
know,
he
I
might
do
be darker
believe
than
that
her.
the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than
Trump
what
used
separates us, and we
race to
don't want
divide the country?
this kind of approach that is just constantly trying
Trump.
to divide us,
Okay.
and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land. He owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual.
Literally put up a homeless
who
woman
took
in
out
his
a full-page ad in the New York
hotel
Times
for like years.
calling for the execution.
I don't even know. I think she might still live there.
5 young
Or she might be dead.
black
No.
and Latino boys who
Oh,
were
come on now.
innocent, the Central Park 5, took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country.
Did we ever get that birth certificate?
We see in each
Yes.
other a friend.
Wasn't there
We
some
see
kind
in
of
each other a
discrepancy about it?
neighbor.
They said there
We
was,
don't
there wasn't.
want a leader
I
who is
mean,
constantly
yeah,
trying to
conspiracy theories.
have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people
I still haven't
all
seen
the
Michelle
time
Obama
who
pregnant.
tell
I've never
me,
seen a picture ever.
can we
Can't find
please
one.
just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same
Yeah,
dreams
by the way,
and
Donald
aspirations
Trump was
and
not
want a
found guilty of that
president who invests
discrimination.
in those, not in
saying.
hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country.
I think Trump's
come
was,
up
but
with
not because of
things
him,
like
because of the opposition.
What she just said.
Yeah, so
Going
then
back
you can't
many,
blame
many
Trump.
years,
I'm
a
not
lot of
blaming Trump.
people,
I'm just
including
saying.
Mayor
I'm being
Bloomberg,
really,
agreed
really
with me
specific.
I know,
on
but
the
everybody
Central
does
Park
that. And they
fight.
try to
They
blame him
admitted.
for being
They
divisive.
said
It's
they
like he
pled
wasn't the
guilty.
one who did it. Like,
And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world.
mean, valid
and I'm going
point.
to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger.
If you go back 40, 50
But they're
years, I'm sure you
destroying
can
our
find some pretty
economy. They
racist
have
shit
no
from Joe
idea what a
Biden,
good
too.
economy is. Their
You don't
oil
have to go back that
policies,
far.
every single policy. And remember
him,
this.
the mayor.
She is Biden. You know, she's
Like,
trying to get away
dang,
from
dude.
Biden. I don't know the gentleman. She says, she is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because
I don't
inflation
know
has
that it was
made
the worst.
so
It's up
bad,
there, though.
and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
The fuck are you talking about?
Briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly
That price
not
just sucked
Donald
dick.
Trump.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism
Unburned by what
about
has been.
what we can do
She is
instead
just
of always disparaging
Seething with.
the
She
American
just wants so much
people.
power. You can just see
I
her, dude. She
believe in what we can
fucking
do
Hitler
to
reincarnated.
strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans.
Look at that little
I have
dictator.
a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation,
new
their
businesses.
ideas, their hard work. I
Tax
have a plan,
deduction.
$6,000
New businesses.
for
And you're
young
gonna raise the
families
corporate
for
tax
the first
rate.
year of your child's life, to help
You've already
you
talked
in
about
that
it.
most critical
And the
stage
capital
of your
gains
child's
tax.
development.
Real
I have a
unrealized
plan
gains.
that is about
On people with net
allowing
worths over
people to
100
be able to
millions, but
pursue
that's
what has
fuck?
been fleeting in
Yeah,
terms
but
of the
it-
American dream.
I
by
agree. I
offering
don't agree with
a
it, but
help with down
that's what
payment
she
of
would say. But she still wants to
$25,000
raise the
down
regular
payment
capital
assistance
gains
for
tax.
first-time
Capital
home
gains should
buyers.
only be
That's the
15%
kind
regardless of how long
conversation
you
I
hold.
believe,
That's
David,
wrong.
that people really want tonight,
15%
as
is
opposed
plenty.
to a conversation that is
That's
constantly
greedy
about
government.
belittling and name calling. Let's turn
But
the
how would you even
page
enforce it?
and
We'll
move
talk
forward.
more about
Let's turn
that.
to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump,
Let's turn to policy,
She
please.
has a plan to
off
defund the
my
police.
lawn.
She has a plan to
A plan.
confiscate
She has a
everybody's
plan.
gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere
No, he doesn't.
else.
Okay,
He-
That's what her
President
plan
Trump
is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump-
We're gonna
president
shut your
has
mic
said
off
something
because we're
twice
little
that I need
bitches.
to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
going
need
to
to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this is
multiple
now
times.
your
Yes.
third
Hey,
time
Both y'all.
running for
Shut
president.
up.
You have
Both
long
y'all
vowed
shut
to
up.
repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish
Yeah,
that.
I wish she
you
had.
now say you're going to keep
She keeps giving
Obamacare
Trump the
quote,
fuck me
unless
eyes.
we can do something much better. Last month, you said,
But he did
quote,
get
"We're
rid of the
working on it."
individual mandate,
So
so-
tonight, 9 years after you first
saved me
started running, do you
$900 a
have
year.
a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today.
Still is.
And what I said, that if we come up
That's
with
what I
something,
said.
and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it.
And that, people, is why
I had a
we
choice to
didn't
make
get
when I
that.
was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration.
So many good people,
We read about
beautiful
the bad
dogs.
Ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans.
I don't know that
if
that's
we can
an
come up
accurate
with a plan
statement,
that's
but-
going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than
I mean,
Obamacare.
let's be real.
then I
Donald
would
Trump never really
absolutely do
did
it.
have a
But until
plan
then,
for
I'd run
healthcare.
it as good as it can be.
We talked
run.
about this
So
in
just a yes
2020.
or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if
I have
we
a
come up with
concept of a
something,
plan.
I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive.
You should have
And
said
there
that
are
in 2020.
concepts and options we
Well, there's
we
really no
have
reason to come up
to
with
do
something
that.
if you can't get
And you'll be
everybody
hearing
to
about
vote
it in the
for
not
it.
too distant
Except that
future.
he's running.
Vice President Harris, in
But-
2017,
No, I'm not talking
you
about that. I'm
supported
talking
Bernie
about back in
Sanders'
2020
proposal to do away with private
or when he was
insurance and
elected.
create a
He was trying to get
government-run
it
healthcare
changed, but
system.
he couldn't get anyone
2
to be
years
on
later,
board.
you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support,
Stop
and over the last 4
subsidizing
years as
everything.
vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that,
But it's a
Lindsay. I just need
disaster.
to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz
You
and I are
said
both gun
it.
owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away.
I don't
so
believe
stop
that
with
for
the
a
continuous
second.
lying about this stuff. As it relates to the
I told
Affordable
you.
Care Act,
You said that you
understand-
supported a
just
mandatory
history to
buyback.
know where people stand.
told you she
when
had a
Donald
gun.
Trump
Yes,
was
but
president,
she said she
60
supported a
times
mandatory
he tried to get
buyback.
rid of the Affordable Care
Yeah,
Act.
but she just said she's a gun
60
owner.
times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget
That's
the
what I
early
said,
You got
Galen.
morning
debunked in the
hours
video.
when it was up for a vote
Wait,
in the
what?
United States Senate, and the late great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being you don't like him, you
McCain was a
said at the
douche.
time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, "No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan." And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with
What did people
pre-existing
do before
conditions.
Obamacare?
I don't have to tell the people watching tonight.
Well, it
Remember
was an
what
issue.
that was like?
Not pay
Remember when an insurance
horrible
company could
fees?
deny if a child had asthma?
Oh, you don't have insurance? You gotta
if someone
pay
was
now.
a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And
Yes, and
thankfully,
I get that,
as
but it
I've been
drove
vice
costs
president,
up.
and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act. We have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to
That's
allow
not
Medicare
true.
to
That's
negotiate
not the first time.
drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since
After
I've
he
been
did.
vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health
All you're
care
doing is
should be
subsidizing
a
the difference.
right, and
That's
not
all you're
just a
doing.
privilege
That's
of
something you
those
could
who
have
can
done at any
afford it.
time.
And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Past its
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake. At number
She
one,
made a mistake.
John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years.
That's
But
true.
it
He
wasn't
did.
only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is what would you do
2 inches
to
of
fight
water
climate change? And Vice President Harris,
in 100 years.
1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change
Actually, I
is
think
a
it's like a
hoax.
foot, but
And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or is being jacked up. You ask
that's not climate
anybody
change,
who
that's
has
insurance
been,
companies.
The victim of what that means in terms of losing their home,
which you don't even like to pay for home repairs anyway.
We know
when
that
those
that's what I'm saying.
deal with this
that's
issue.
not
The
climate
young people
change.
of
That's
America care
insurance
deeply
companies.
about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels.
How does that even make sense?
Over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs.
So you wasted $1 trillion?
We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are
If they're
opening
investing
up
in
factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is
just going to get in and put a massive
tariff.
tariff
We're not going to
on
let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will
There you
kill
go.
the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they
compare
refuse.
the economies.
You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly
It's
China
not that
paid him
hard.
millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get
Under
all this
Biden,
money from
Dollar Tree
Ukraine.
turned into
They get all
$1.25
this money
tree.
from all of these different countries, and then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one,
They
that
took
one,
away
Ukraine,
dollar
China?
McDoubles.
Why is he? Why did
Well,
he get
it was like
$3.5
$1.29,
million
but
from
Dollar
the mayor
drinks,
of
too.
Moscow's wife?
Yeah.
Why did he get?
Yeah,
Why did she pay him
$1.39.
$3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates.
He's like
An
a
historic
half-assed
night, this
preacher,
ABC
too.
News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back
You're
in a moment.
selling out our country.
Yeah, so he's like a half-assed preacher that doesn't know he's supposed to be preaching.
All right, don't pause it this time. Just mute it.
I did. I didn't pause it before. I only paused it
Oh,
because
my
you
bad.
asked me to.
I don't want my internet to mess up. It's going well. It's going well.
It's working. It's working like crazy.
You know, the funny thing is, I'm sitting here. I'm like, okay, so, dude, when are you gonna mute it? When are you gonna mute it? And I'm
It's already
sitting here.
muted.
It's mine.
Oh,
I didn't mute mine. Dude, this is a shit show.
Well, honestly, this is a little bit more of a standard debate.
No, dude, she literally just potentially implicated herself.
Well, it depends.
What the fuck, man? I know, but the thing is, like, the way you said it,
that's really it.
It's how you said it. It's not what you said. I mean, it is what you said, but like, what the fudge, man? She literally said she gave intelligence to Putin.
No.
That's
She
not
said she gave.
something-
No, she said she gave intelligence to Zelensky, but
Was it okay? My bad.
but
I thought she said
it depends on what kind of intelligence, where it came from. there are questions.
Well, if it's intelligence about Russia, that would probably be a big issue, right?
It's Russia. It's
They're not
Russia,
NATO.
Russia.
Is Ukraine's not NATO, right?
They are not.
And then what were they? They were trying to get into NATO, correct? Still trying. And that's what Putin was upset about.
That was one of the things, yes.
Yeah, because he's like, why do they want them, but they don't want us? Like, you're the scary uncle, dude. we don't deal with scary uncles in these parts. Creepy ass dude. I'm just kidding, Vladimir. Don't abduct me, please.
Don't kill me.
Don't kill me.
And I'm a little surprised that Trump hasn't brought up the fact that Ukraine has now incurred into Russia twice. Now.
Probably because he's just over it. He's probably over giving it attention, because that's what everybody's so exhausted from giving it attention. It's like we're tired of it, dude. Like, why haven't you guys settled this? What the fuck are you even fighting about? Like, what the hell?
Well, because this is all a plan to denigrate the Russian military at the end of the day. I firmly believe that. They're letting it happen. They keep funneling because it's a way to fight a war against Russia without having to fight a war against Russia.
Yeah,
because they can fund Ukraine forever. And
well, they can try to fund it, because eventually the American people are going to be like, why are we in an endless war once again?
Another
endless
one.
War. Democrats, man, they just love endless war.
I'm glad that Trump pointed out that, yes, he negotiated with the Taliban, but part of that negotiation was, if you don't hold up your end of the bargain, the deal's off. And like he said, they didn't uphold their end of the bargain. He gave them another chance too, and then they still fucked it up.
Ridiculous.
And so Kamala, right? Kamala's a big, proponent of women's rights. Okay, explain to me why you let the Taliban take back over Afghanistan the way they did, and women are now back into abject slavery after 20 years of freedom, being able to learn how to read, being able to learn how to go to school, being able to walk outside without being completely covered up from head to toe. And now they're right back. You talk about Donald Trump taking us back to the fucking 18th century. Fuck, Afghanistan is in the 12th century when it comes to women's rights. Okay, explain that to me.
You can't breathe oxygen to a drowning person.
But I mean, seriously, you're this big, women's rights advocate. Okay, explain this to me. You were the last person in the room. You were so proud of it.
They're drowning themselves, and they just don't see it.
I mean, here's the thing. But that's just it. Nobody's taking her to task on this crap. Nowhere near like Trump had to answer for. Trump is still answering for crap that was debunked in the previous election cycle, or even before that, when he was president.
But yet that's still part of her arsenal. It's like,
I know, because they don't
new material there, Kamala.
Because they don't have good policy. We're back.
Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir,
Joe and
Lindsay
Campbell
Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
We're not going back.
So I think you've heard tonight
I'm not going
two
back.
very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us back.
Yes, you're very focused on the past.
But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy,
yes,
investing in
already.
Small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do.
Your
I'll
first
tell
client
you,
was
I
Montel.
started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a
Well, I thought you worked
prosecutor,
at
I
McDonald's.
never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
By
President
packing
Harris,
the Supreme Court.
thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
There it is.
They've had 3.5
Good
years
Trump.
to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany
Things
tried
that already
that,
have.
and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation.
Good Trump.
We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history
they've found
of our
more
country.
than a few people that were on
President
terror
Trump,
watch
thank
lists
you.
that entered
And
the
that
country
is our
illegally at the
ABC
southern
News
border.
presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center.
It's
I'm
not
Lindsay
hard to
Davis.
find.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for
statistical
watching
data
here in the U.S.
or
and all
not
over the
statistical
world,
data,
and
but
from all
those
of us
facts.
here at ABC News. Good night.
And that is
Oh,
the
damn.
end of the first presidential debate between.
I was
I
going to
didn't
say,
know
you
those were
think?
closing remarks.
Yeah, those are closing remarks. I was
Okay, damn.
waiting to I was waiting to see if Trump and Kamala would shake hands. I didn't think they would, but I thought it would be interesting if Trump offered. I think he should have.
Damn. Oh my gosh.
Um,
That was
I
something
mean,
else. I mean, she didn't do bad, but like,
I was gonna say no. I think she did better than I thought she would. I will say that much. I'll give credit where credit's due. She did better than I thought she was going to. Trump, Trump, I think did overall a pretty good job of restraining himself because that's really the only concern I had for him. He got most of his facts straight. A couple of things were like, I don't know if that's accurate, but nothing that I would say is so glaring that you would really call it a lie, maybe a mistake. Kamala lied several times, but I mean, that's to be expected.
yeah, it's pretty normal for
So,
them.
yeah.
Them.
So Ben Shapiro was right yet again. He predicted that not much would really happen or change after this debate. He also said he doesn't think there's going to be another one. I agree. I don't think we're going to get another debate. I don't even think we'll get a VP debate, even though I wish we would.
So she got the nominee. How? But so she got the nominee. So I'm just confused. Like, can they just like take it away or anything? Like, how is this?
I mean,
gonna work?
apparently they can't. Oh, well, technically now she can't because the delegate votes have been certified, so she is officially the nominee.
Okay.
But again, and I'm glad Trump pointed it out. Not at the same time. He should have pointed this out at the same time. is, they think Trump should have literally been, they think I'm a threat to democracy. I won 2 primary elections. Each time I ran for president, I ran and won a primary election. Kamala dropped out of her only primary election before they even cast a single vote because she was a bad candidate. And then she was picked as vice president. People voted for Joe Biden because people don't have a say in who the vice president is, not the average voter. They're added to the ticket. Kamala Harris, this is what he should have said. Kamala Harris has not received a single vote for president from any American ever in her life. And
Nope.
she says, I'm a threat to democracy. Okay.
Yeah,
That's what he
no.
should have said. There's too streamlined of a thought in there for Trump, but that's what he should have said.
I honestly feel like he isn't giving her the time of the day because he doesn't feel she's worthy. So he's not like even rebutting what she's saying. He's like, what's the point? He's probably, I feel like he's just up there.
I disagree. I think he's taking her seriously. Not so much her, but just the fact that he's running against a Democrat. Because I kind of half agree with what you said. Because honestly, in a vacuum, like this shouldn't even be a close race. But unfortunately, Kamala, just like Joe Biden, is not running on Kamala Harris policy, Kamala Harris's plan. She's running on Trump derangement syndrome, just like Joe Biden. And if you want proof, check her social media. Check the vast majority of her political ads. They're all at least conservatively, at least 80 to 90% of them are all directly about Donald Trump.
My wife gets text messages from Kamala's camp, and it's like, "This Kamala Harris here." It's like, "Oh, is it? Is this Kamala Harris? This is actually Kamala Harris?" Okay.
Which actually, I'm gonna look at something right now. Let's see, Kamala HQ on TikTok. So I'm just going to go. Well, so I'm gonna skip the debate clips. So if you go to her TikTok right now, Kamala HQ, first TikTok, top 3 lies Trump will tell in the debate. A stolen video from TMZ showing Trump golfing poorly. Just got 3 things to say about the debate, referencing Trump. Okay, so I'll give her that. That may not necessarily be anti-Trump. So that's the first. So out of 3, 2 deal with Trump. The next one, tonight a convicted felon will debate a prosecutor. Next one is a debate one. Next one is an ad making fun of Donald Trump. Next one is Nikki Haley saying that a clip of Nikki Haley saying that if Trump is the nominee, we'll have a president, Kamala Harris. So yeah, the vast majority of her ads are, or of her videos, of her content is dogging Donald Trump.
Yep, TDS. And
Trump
I'm not talking about
syndrome. Oh God, is that a company even still around?
Maybe, I don't know.
If your house is surrounded on 3 or 4 sides by corn, you know what we're talking about.
Let me see. 1 side, 2 side, 3 side, 4 side. I've got all 4 sides surrounded by corn. Granted, it's far enough away on the sides, but it's all good. I don't even think she stands a chance. I don't think anyone's going to vote for her other than like crazy kids trying to get, free college and shit like that. I think the rest of the country's pretty much woken up.
See, okay, so I'm gonna go back to the election map, just because. Share that bad boy. We're gonna X out of that. So I will just. Oh, how did I change that? Oh well, doesn't matter. Oh, I remember how I did it now. Because
They're trying to say it's going to be that close.
I think it will be. I think it will be. Never underestimate the derangement of the far left.
Well, also in mail-in ballots, so I get it.
Well, but here's the thing, and again, keep in mind this is based on polling data. So a lot of these swing states that I've given to Kamala, and even some that I've given to Trump, although like I was calling Trump taking Arizona very early on just because of just general sentiment. I'm doing this based on polling data because that's like the prevailing information. I'll be honest with you. When they said that Kamala, there was a brief period where they said Kamala was going to take Georgia, and I was like, no, I don't. True, some of this might be considered somewhat anecdotal, but I base a lot of these opinions in swing states based off of the sentiment that I see online. And it's like they talk about how, Kamala's going to have the vast majority of the black vote. Based on what I've seen, not black men. I've not seen.
Not too many black women either. I mean, maybe
I would
I don't know.
honestly.
They're probably divided pretty evenly.
What is that? Haley says this is the first time I'm seeing on a map my state all blue. I had no idea. That's another thing. So Kamala's polling fairly ahead, although with margin of error, which I believe is 3% one way or another. It's still considered a battleground state. I don't think Kamala's going to do as well in Michigan as she thinks. I still think she's going to take it, but I think it's going to be by the hair on her, by the skin of her teeth.
I think Pennsylvania is going to flip red.
I think it will too, and I think one of Kamala's many mistakes will have been not selecting Josh Shapiro as her running mate because he's very popular in Pennsylvania.
They burned the unions.
Yeah. Well, not all of them.
Biden burned the unions bad. They're not falling for it again.
Not the big ones, like the Teamsters, for example.
I'd hope not. It's like, man, y'all are just silly, dude. Like, it's not hard. Like, just wake up.
Well, unfortunately, like the what would you call it? The federal employees unions are very popular with the Democrats, but for obvious reasons. But just so we're clear, so if Trump takes Pennsylvania, he will win by 11 electoral votes. If Kamala somehow pulls it off, she'll win by 6 electoral votes. Now, let's look at another model. Let's say Kamala takes Georgia. Technically, she wins. However, if Trump takes Pennsylvania, he will still lose. So if Kamala can take Georgia and or Pennsylvania and everything else stays the same, because like let's say Trump can somehow squeeze and take Nevada.
I don't think people hate Trump that much to vote for Kamala. I could understand with Biden. I could slightly understand with Biden, but Kamala, no. I don't think so.
But here's the thing, Kamala is more popular than Biden. I don't understand. I don't understand how, but all the polling data suggests that that's true. I don't understand how.
We all know.
I mean, maybe, but the fact remains.
Has everything to do with skin color.
Maybe, but the fact remains. The fact remains, though.
Guaranteed. It's the only reason she's popular because that bitch is retarded.
Well,
in every sense of. Excuse my language. I'm sorry. That was mean. I won't say that.
But see, here's the interesting. Let's say Trump takes Michigan, right? Which I don't think will happen, but let's say he does, and then Kamala takes Pennsylvania. Trump still wins. Now, which here's the thing: if Kamala can manage to take Georgia and Pennsylvania, there's no way she's losing Michigan. I don't think. I just don't see that happening.
Hear me out. I know this is crazy. I think Illinois is going to flip.
I don't think Illinois is going to flip.
I don't know, dude. Dude, you should hear some of the voters and whatnot. I've seen some videos of them talking about the illegals and whatnot in Illinois.
America's return to space as
I don't know,
Discovery clears the tower.
I honestly think you could flip. Can't trust these hoes. That's a pretty big fucking margin for error. 3% over 425 million Americans. Well, what is it, 325? Yeah, but they'll say, well, it says president, not vice president, and it's like she's still part of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see. Well, no, actually, I think Pennsylvania will turn red as well. Obviously, New York's going to stay blue. November can't get here soon enough. I'm dying. I'm dying to see. What?
Buddy. Oh God, I apologize. I hit a button somehow.
How long ago was that?
I don't know. I don't think it was that long ago.
Oh, well.
Oh well, I mean, hopefully you could still hear me, but anyway. So we're just going over the map. So long story short, why didn't anybody say anything?
They never do.
Oh, normally they do help me out.
I'm just joking.
But so long story short, and here I'm going to reset the map. So this is based on all the polling data. This is what they're calling safe for each candidate. Everything in brown is a toss-up state. Now, like I said, I'm pretty sure, which I don't understand how Kamala's going to take Wisconsin. I really, really don't, based on everything that happened there. And Minnesota, you'll see, is leaning left, but it's not. So all these light blue in their model are leaning left, but they're not sure things. So only the dark blue is and dark red are like certain, although we all know Texas is a sure thing, Florida is a sure thing. We we know Indiana is a sure thing. So just showing. Oh, did you, Haley? I didn't see it. Oh, yep, there you are.
Can you imagine if California flipped one day? You have to get Arnold back into power.
Well, everybody forgets Ronald Reagan was a Republican governor in California too.
Oh.
Of course, now everybody. Thank you, Haley. I just didn't see
Have you
it.
seen that movie yet?
No, I want to though. I hear it's really good.
I figured you would.
I just need the time.
I kind of want to go see it.
We should see that. Maybe we'll do a review of Reagan as well. So this was my logic. And again, I base this on polling data and then general sentiment. And now what I did though is I didn't give it to Trump unless I saw him polling ahead and saw a lot of general sentiment online. So I gave Trump Arizona. Nevada's honestly still a toss up, but I was being generous and I gave it to Harris because it was leaning a little bit her way in the polls. I figure Harris is going to take Wisconsin because they historically go blue. Harris is polling pretty heavily ahead in Michigan. That's why I gave her that. Georgia was a toss up. It looks like Trump's taken South Carolina. They changed Virginia. I don't remember when, but they did change it. So it basically is coming down to Georgia and Pennsylvania, assuming that Trump can maintain Georgia, which I honestly think he will. It comes down to Pennsylvania. But like I said, if Kamala takes Georgia, it still comes down to Pennsylvania. Oh, it needs to be read. Sorry. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Trump would still lose at that point. So Trump needs to maintain Georgia and win in Pennsylvania, or, like we said, flip another state. Because even if he were to somehow flip Wisconsin and Kamala took Pennsylvania,
I think Pennsylvania learned its lesson, and honestly, Georgia, I think he's going to retain it.
I agree.
Illinois, maybe. I honestly think he's close.
I agree. And here's the thing that
But the rest of it, I agree with. I don't think it's going to change any.
Well, here's the thing that everybody forgets, though. And look at that lead if Trump maintains Georgia and takes Pennsylvania. That's not small.
No, it'll be like one of the biggest landslides ever.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty substantial.
If it happens the way I'm saying.
Yeah. But here's the thing that people forget though. Trump voter you can't really trust polls during a Trump election because Trump attracts a lot of people that historically didn't vote. You're one of them. This is very common and a lot of people that end up voting for Trump, like there's the super MAGA people that are like very vocal. Trump got a lot of people out to the polls that just were not vocal about it. So you may very well see Trump take Nevada. It's that close. You might very well see Trump maintain Virginia. And let's say Kamala somehow squeaks by in Pennsylvania. Trump still wins if that happens. If Trump can flip Illinois, it would be amazing. And then let's say, people this is kind of like the best case scenario for Trump. Let's say Trump maintains Arizona, takes Nevada. People in Minnesota decide they don't like Tim Walz that much, and they remember that under a Democrat president, they managed to burn down some of their cities in Wisconsin. And let's say that the pro-Palestine crowd in Michigan hates Kamala and Joe Biden so much that they decide not to turn out, and Trump squeaks by a victory. So even if Kamala took Pennsylvania, which I'll be honest, I don't think she will. This is kind of like Trump's ideal model. This would be fucking incredible.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Now, I don't think, like I said, this is the Trump ideal scenario because we all know Trump's not taking California. Trump's not taking any of these West Coast cities. Trump's not taking New York. Doubtful he'd take Colorado, New Mexico, maybe, but I'm not going to say it's inconsequential, but Nebraska historically at least one district votes blue. Same with Maine. I'm sorry, in Maine, historically at least one district votes red. That's pretty common because of how their election laws are. But now, sort of the ideal situation for Harris, she maintains Michigan, she maintains Wisconsin, she maintains Minnesota. She gets Nevada and somehow manages to squeak by Arizona. And Virginia gives it to her. She takes Georgia. She still needs to win Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I don't think she has a shot in hell for it.
Well, I mean, they're neck and neck. I think they're each. Oh, well, let's even give her another one because there was a brief period where they said she was looking.
NC.
Yeah. Okay. So she took North Carolina, which I'll admit I don't see this happening. She would win, and she doesn't need Pennsylvania. But there's a lot of things that have to go Kamala's way for that to happen. So let's give that back to Trump. She still has to take Pennsylvania to win the election. If Trump maintains Pennsylvania, she loses. And that's assuming that she takes Nevada, Arizona, maintains Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and takes Georgia. There's a lot more things that have to happen for Kamala than for Trump to win this election. Because I'll be honest, I don't see Trump losing Georgia. I don't see Trump losing Virginia. So assuming that all this, Illinois, that's the other one. Because I don't see Trump taking Illinois. So even all this, So even all this going on. Wait, something's wrong.
Damn.
Something's wrong. What did I screw up here? That's too big of a lead. Hang on. Okay, so Trump's taking Illinois. She's getting Nevada. She's taking Wisconsin. She's taking Michigan.
Where did you
Trump's
screw
taking
up?
Georgia. I don't know. Oh, I think I'd given Trump Virginia. Okay, so assuming everything, and based on polling data, it still comes down to Pennsylvania. But again, that's
This is
like
the
I
original.
well with my additions because it blocks out the battleground states. But based on polling data, like if Trump's getting Illinois, Kamala's taking Nevada by a very very slim margin. Nevada is honestly still a toss up. Kamala's taking Wisconsin and Michigan. Trump's taking Georgia and North Carolina. They're giving Kamala Virginia. I don't see that happening, but maybe we'll leave the map alone because that's what they're calling for. Still comes down to Pennsylvania. But this is assuming that the polls reflect the Trump voter turnout, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think you honestly might see Trump take Nevada. I think you honestly might see Trump take Virginia. So if that happens, even if Kamala takes Pennsylvania, Trump still wins.
Why in the world do we have so many what are they what are they called? Delegates?
What do you mean?
54 and 6 and 6, the numbers on the what do you call them in the in the inside
electors. Electors, yeah.
Electors. Okay, so anyway, so the electors like 54 and then 40
it's based on population.
I know, but it's like people in large groups are stupid. I'm so tired of it.
Well, I mean,
like
it kind of makes sense.
I'm sorry, a lot of Texans too.
But just to show you guys, like I'm going to illustrate a point here. I'm going to reset the map. We're going to do this again, but assume that Trump takes California.
Yeah, right.
I'm just showing the impact it has. Kamala could take Nevada. Kamala could take Arizona. Kamala could take Wisconsin. Kamala could take Michigan. Kamala could take North Carolina. Kamala could take Pennsylvania. Kamala could take Georgia and still not win the election. Now, this would never fucking happen. But just to illustrate, so even with that advantage, again, if everything lays out the way I predicted, well, I predicted Trump might take Nevada, so let me fix that. California is a huge advantage. This is how I think the electoral map might. And Pennsylvania, I have no idea. Pennsylvania is a toss-up. But either way, even if Kamala takes Pennsylvania and these guesses are correct, it doesn't matter. So I'm just showing you.
Trump's got it, but no. I mean,
well, but
anymore.
My point here is they're making it sound like it's a very close race, but there are way more scenarios in which Trump wins than Kamala. Kamala needs to not lose any ground whatsoever and pick up a little bit. So again, going back to what the polling data shows. So Kamala, all things staying the same, Kamala has to take Pennsylvania, and she cannot lose ground anywhere else. And that's assuming she gets Virginia, which again, I don't know about that.
So, can you imagine if she wins?
I don't
say goodbye to groceries.
I'm just saying. I'll be honest. I don't see how that's possible.
I'm just saying. Like, I mean, I don't think they're cheaters, but at the end of the day, I mean, I don't want to get flagged on YouTube.
I think they are, just not in the way that everybody was talking about.
No, not at all. I understand. I somewhat understand what you're saying.
So hang on. Let's go back to the 2020. This is the 2020 results. Wait, that's not right. Hang on. Shit, hang on. I need to. Okay, I was looking at the wrong map. Here's the election results, right?
306. Sure.
Oh, never mind. I can't change that map. Okay.
Well, just
hang on. Shoot, I was trying to illustrate a point here. Now I don't know how to.
In the states that Biden won, they should say how long it took for them to do the count, and that should be a clear factor. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm replicating the map here real quick. Colorado, Wisconsin went blue, Michigan went blue, Georgia went blue,
My ass
Virginia
hurts.
went blue, Pennsylvania went blue, and North Carolina went red. Okay, so that should be 306 to 232. Okay, cool. So this is the map of the election results. Now, what were the two states that had really big? Well, actually, no, there were three states that had really big. Oh no, there were four, weren't there? Because Michigan. So let's assume in a fantasy world that Donald Trump was right, and we're going to go through an example here. Let's assume that Donald Trump was right in Georgia and that there was voter fraud and he actually won. Okay, not quite there yet. And then Pennsylvania was another one, or actually, was it more Pennsylvania or Arizona? It was both, really, right?
Yeah, Arizona definitely.
So
And
okay, let's give Trump Arizona. Let's assume he's right, and Pennsylvania. Isn't that interesting? And then there was a kerfuffle in Michigan too, although that was pretty well. Let's just give it to him. So let's say that Trump was correct. That changes the map drastically.
we would have cheap gas and affordable everything.
But let's do another exercise. Let's
And maybe
just
some
look
mean
at.
tweets. I'd be okay with mean tweets.
I'm okay with mean tweets, but let's also assume where were the states that changed their election laws? I know Pennsylvania was one of them.
Twitter's dead.
Arizona was one of them. Georgia
Yep.
was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Michigan was one of them too. Right? No,
Wisconsin?
maybe. I think Wisconsin was one of them. Well, let's be real. I don't think that really had much of an
No.
impact.
But still, though,
Well,
he wins.
but look again. That's my biggest problem is the fact that in an election year, election laws were changed. Now, the Constitution says to the states, you can run elections as you see fit. I've got zero issue with that. What I have an issue with is changing them in an election year. And there was a big kerfluffle in Pennsylvania because apparently they did some, I don't remember exactly what happened, but they did some, there was some fuckery there. But so I do predict Donald Trump winning.
Yeah.
But we'll see. All he really has to do, I think, is not screw up, and hopefully for him, he's hoping Kamala Harris screws up, which honestly, she's probably not going to because she's going to make a concerted effort to not talk to the media, adversarial media at all. So,
I mean, considering she hasn't actually done a press briefing in how long?
it had been a while. Peter Ducey gave him shit for it, but that was Biden, not Kamala. She's done one recorded interview that got edited down to 16 minutes, and she brought her emotional support vice president pick with her.
Her emotional support president. Yeah,
Well,
I know. It's
Shapiro
funny,
Shapiro called him her emotional support corgi, but
that's pretty great. But like, you got to think her and Biden vice presidents, and they're just fucking terrible people and terrible. Yeah. So, yeah, don't elect vice presidents if they're tards.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just bad policy, and it's policy that's just demonstrably not worked, and that's the thing that's really frustrating. Is it's like, look, you can debate liberal or conservative or Republican and Democrat philosophy, but she's proposing things that just if you know basic history, you know don't work. Price controls have been tried. They've never worked, not once. Never.
No.
Never ever. Never ever.
Never, ever, ever, ever.
Never ever? I know he said
Never?
forever ever, but I changed the lyrics to make it fit the joke.
Never, ever, ever, never.
Well, I don't know. You got any other final thoughts on? Honestly, that was a little underwhelming. I feel like I wasted an hour and a half of my life.
Pretty much. It's all good though.
But you didn't waste it here because at least you were entertained.
Somewhat, and maybe hopefully next time I'll be in a nicely lit area.
I don't know. I don't think it was bad.
Yeah,
Again, at the end of the day, it's a podcast. I think most people probably just have it on listening, but
right.
well, that concludes this special presentation of the Average Intelligence Podcast. Hopefully, you're a little bit less average and a little bit more intelligent, but you did listen to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump for an hour and a half, so sorry.
Yeah, we didn't start the fire.
Nope, not at all. Well, there's probably, like I said at the beginning of this, there's probably going to be some change, or I said yesterday rather, there's probably going to be some changes to date and time. We will keep you guys abreast of what's going on. You guys and gals, don't want to alienate the ladies, all two of you that are watching. But yeah, we'll be in touch. Until then, we should see you Sunday. But if there's a change, we'll let you know. Until then, go out and vote November 5th. You know, sorry we can't give you better candidates, but it is what it is.
Hey,
I certainly didn't pick them.
Use logic. That's all you need. Use logic.
Who would Spock vote for? Who'd Spock vote for?
Well, considering he runs off of logic solely, I imagine he would probably vote for Trump, and the reason being because he's not going to get emotional when he says something.
Trick question. Spock is an alien. He can't vote.
But Leonard Nimoy is a human.
He probably voted Democrat if I had to guess, but
Oh, yeah,
I don't know. I honestly,
no, he would. He'd probably vote Democrat.
I honestly don't know.
But
I do not know.
Get those
Maybe he
tribbles
voted
out of
for
your
Reagan.
pants.
Oh, but anyway, we're gonna get off here. I'm tired of shit. So,
all right,
bye.